Welcome to another episode of Questions and Conversations on Leadership and Life. Today we are diving into the balance between demands and resources. When expectations feel heavier than what we have available, we often fall into reactivity. But what if we could shift into creativity instead? If you have been with us for a while, you might remember one of our most favorite tools: pause, notice, and choose. The tool we use for navigating moments like this. It's so powerful that we are bringing it back today, exploring how it helps us shift from stress to clarity. Let's get into it.
Good morning, Polly.
Good morning, Steve. How's it going?
It is going great. It was so good to see you at our live 3-day event last week.
It was awesome. It was awesome. Be
It,
with
it-
you. Give the hug.
yes, yes. And when you get what we have, close to 200 people and a very nice accommodating facility, but all working on designing something that will have an impact to those we serve, and you're around that energy, it's just a great cycle of energy you bring back and ride that wave for a while.
Yes, still feeling the ripples.
And Polly, this is another episode of Questions and Conversations on Leadership and Life. And I'm Steve.
And I'm Polly. We love saying
And
that.
yeah, and we are really excited about what we're sharing today. And I can kick that off if you'd like, Polly.
Go for it, please.
Yeah, today we're entertaining the idea of demands, resources, reactivity, and creativity. And so the framework is this: when the demands that are placed on us, or when we perceive the demands that are being placed on us, or that are being placed on us by our leaders, exceed the resources that we believe we have available, or that leader is making available to us. So when that perception that the demands are greater than the resources, we are in a state generally of stress, self-doubt, anxiety. It creates a bit of a downward spiral. And the cycle is more like a trigger, fight, flight, freeze cycle. And in a word, that's a state of reactivity. Okay, so that's when the demands are greater than the resources. You could actually make a little equation out of that. On the other side of things, when we've prepared for a project and we've taken the time, we've got what we need, we have the resources, we've met with our team, and we've done the things by what we've provided, and letting them know our availability to support them, that they have agency to proceed. When we feel like our resources are greater than the demands, and especially when our teams feel like Polly's got my back, she's there for us. This is a challenging project, but we've got the resources we need and the agency to act on it. When we're in that side, now we're in inspiration, innovation, a cycle of giving and receiving, giving and receiving. And in a word, we're in a state of creativity. And we experience both. And Polly, we have a tool from our conscious leadership toolbox that we use to bridge that gap, to be able to recognize perhaps we're in this cycle of reactivity. How do we bridge that to get over to the more creative, giving, receiving, creative side? And Polly, do you want to walk them through that tool that we use that's available to us? When we
I'll
get
be
good at it, it's available to us on demand.
exactly. I'll be glad to do that. And I'll give you the name of this too. It's PNC.
Wh-
What?
Is that a P in
PNC.
C? P as in Paul?
P as in Paul.
Okay.
And it's
Or Polly.
Nancy. And C as in Charles. Charles?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I remember those.
Okay.
Or Peter, if you were
Hmm.
using. Okay. But anyway,
PNC.
it's PNC. And P stands for pause.
Pause.
N stands for notice.
Notice.
And C stands for choose.
choose. So how does that pause, notice, choose? So how does that work?
There you go. One thing that is within us all the time at any moment that we need is the air that we breathe. So, on the go, at any moment, at work, in life, with friends, with family, something happens, triggers you, pause, take a deep breath. Our moms used to say that, or our caregivers used to say that. Okay, stop, breathe. But you can take it as a pause and a deep inhale. It will already change the way you were thinking, and your brain is going to go from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system just by
Is
pausing,
that another
just by
way to say
breathing.
it? It helps us slow down and stay in the
Boom.
moment?
There you go.
Okay, great, great.
Boom. Awesome. Yes, that's it. That's it. Notice, feel yourself. Notice how you were feeling. Whenever something triggers us, the first thing that happens is our heart boom, 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 and we are sending adrenaline all over the place, all over our body, and we usually clench our fists and we want to go to something, do something. When you pause and notice how you were feeling, and you can take a second deep breath, you are calming down, you are slowing down.
Yeah, Polly might that's great. I'm curious too. The notice might be noticing like, is the person I'm talking to, notice how they're showing up and am I triggering them? Is that another notice?
It is. So it's notice yourself and notice what is going around you.
Okay.
Feel the environment. And this happens in seconds. But these seconds, they help you go into choose. How do you want to show up at that very moment? Do you want to just really open up your mouth and say all the words that are coming through your mind? Do you want to, okay, not the time to say these things, because as in a pendulum, I'm just going to bring it to the extremes of it instead of keeping it closer to balance. So how do I want to do? What can I do best at that moment? Or what can I do better at that moment? Maybe it's not perfect, but instead of causing the Third World War, how can I just have a lighter argument discussion that both, or you and the team, you and your family, you and your friends can grow? And once you know that, you cannot unknown.
Yes,
Does that
yes.
make
Yeah, it's a bit of self-awareness. And that was a great example of how we respond in the moment. Um, I would offer and be curious. Sometimes that response might be, Polly, I want to continue this conversation. I want to be fully present, but I'm not there right now. Would we be able to do this right after lunch? So, the choice might be recognizing how you're showing up and or the other person's really in a reactive state. Maybe it's best to defer this conversation for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or till after lunch. So that's another choice, I guess, is the point, to choose how you want to respond. And I liked how you phrased it. What's the best way for me to act right now? What's the best choice to make? Continue the conversation? How might I phrase the conversation? Defer the conversation? But what's the best choice in this
it?
moment?
Exactly. And I would
Okay.
even add, we do live on a crazy hectic life at work and life. We cannot sometimes just put them aside in two different square boxes. No, because we are one, so we are going from one to the other. The more we pay attention to how we are feeling, and that we have the possibility to to see ourselves, to feel the environment, and really choose, we are making the difference for us and for the other.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, this is interesting because we have many of these episodes we start with a breathing presencing practice. And we're inserting that kind of in the middle. The teaching tool is this is a way to bring that practice into the middle of something. And so that's what we've done just now. Well, Polly, I have this thought, and then I think maybe you could bring our audience into into the question around this. But we often believe, and even with our best intentions, that we're showing up as a resource. However, our team or the way we're entering the room may actually perceive that we're really putting more demands on them than we're providing resources. Okay, so best intentions, we may think we're showing up as a resource, but we're really showing up more as a demand. And I'm just curious, there's a question behind that. And the question is,
I have the question right here.
all right.
And the question is, how might we presence ourselves so we can show up as a resource for ourselves, for the others, and not as a demand? So how might we presence? How might we resource ourselves beforehand for a moment that we are triggered? We can be okay, and we can really use pause, notice, and choose.
Okay.
How might you resource that? How might you presence yourself?
And so we're actually doing a little pre-pause, notice, and choose, and really asking the question, am I really showing up as a resource?
There you go.
The way I'm entering the room. Well, that's so we can reflect on that. And why don't you go through the question one more time, just before
Absolutely.
we start reflecting on it, and ask our audience to do the same.
How might we presence ourselves to show up as a resource and not as a demand?
Okay.
What does that look like? Can I come up with 3 things I can do? So think about it.
Okay.
We are going to think about it too
Very good.
and
What
discuss
in our
it.
time frame, Polly?
We have
Polly,
about 3 minutes to do
3 minutes to
that.
reflect on that question.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Something around 3 minutes because it's what you capture right on the go.
Okay.
So how might we presence ourselves to show up as a resource and not as a demand?
Okay. Very good. Well, I'll see you in a little around 3 to 4 minutes. I'll see you shortly.
Sounds good. Sounds good. audience
Yes.
here.
Welcome back to our audience as well.
Yeah, hope they also had the time to think of. Would you? I invite you to go first if you have
Okay.
the heart and the head to go there to step up.
I do. So just three or four bullet points. One for me, and this, for me is to reflect, and this happens often with the people I've known the longest and care about the most, is really think about the smoke from another fire that I tend to bring into those conversations, and really make sure that I'm alert for that, so that I'm meeting them where they're at, and I'm not projecting things that have happened in the past into that. So just really thinking about my audience and thinking about who I'm meeting with or gathering with, what's their trait style. Some people want to ease into the conversation. Others want to get right to the agenda right away. So maybe give some thought to that. How do they like to show up? Another thing that I found very helpful, and I'm starting to really make a point of this, is I call it the relaxed atmosphere. And what does that mean? That means if it's a 45-minute meeting, I make sure the agenda is something I can normally accomplish in 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Creating that space, I've just found that by having that space, the conversations just go that one layer deeper. And by creating that by the structure of the agenda, I've really found it helpful. So that's something I've been doing. And then the questions we ask as we wrap up: do you believe you have the resources you need? As you sit here today, can you think of anything you might need to keep the momentum going on this project? If not, I am keeping office hours this week, or it could be we are going to meet once a week, every other day, whatever it needs to be to make sure that they've thought about, do they have what they need, and you've given them some assurance that
Mhm.
you're there to provide those resources in the form of answers to questions or other items they may need. And yep, that was it. Those were the things that came up for me, Polly.
They're good ones. They're good ones. I really enjoyed the last one you mentioned of a prep in the ways you have extra minutes to connect with the questions and having going a deeper level into what you were with your team doing with your team. I like that.
Yeah, I learned that from one of my teachers probably within the last year. And the first time I experienced what they were facilitating, that extra space was really great.
Amazing. That's a good one.
Well, well,
Taking
thank you.
that. Taking that. I like
What
it.
what were your thoughts? What came up for you in your
One of the
reflection?
things from the first time I heard of heart math and I learned about heart focused breathing, it's been one of my go to tools. So, really focusing my attention on breathing in from the chest area. So, it gives me time to connect my feelings with all the turmoil that is in my head at the moment, even though it goes in seconds. And it slows me down. So this is one of the things I have been doing lately a lot. I have been practicing one thing that I heard from a mentor years ago. He was actually my client, but I nowadays I see him as a mentor. Think of three things that are triggering you, which also helps you slow down. And also think of three things that is going into the environment with the person you were talking to, with the team you are, with your family, what might have been happening in their world for them to be also in reactive mode. That changes what I can connect with. It changes my perspective 360. Not in 360 because I'm going back to the same place, but 180 view.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, not a 360, so I go back to the same. Or if I go back, it's with a different eyes. So that
Okay.
also helps me. And openness. We all have learnings. We all have reactions and reactivity moments. So be open to listen when others are telling you that's not okay, and not go into reactivity, hold my horses, and do all the other possibilities. Life happens, even though and it's a constant practice, and it's something that we have to have on our daily basis, like focusing on these tiny bits. So when something triggers us, we can quickly turn around. Or if not quickly, somewhat quicker than just being on the reactive mode. These are my thoughts on
Okay. Well,
that.
I appreciate those. And the heart breath is one of my favorites too. And we've done that before, but let's do that to start our next episode.
Oh,
Let's
sounds
let's
like a
start with the
good
heart
plan.
breath because it is one of
Yeah.
my favorites. The other thing I appreciated that you shared is thinking through using the power of three to think through what I interpreted you saying is think through the power of three. What are three things that might trigger me, but also thinking through what might trigger the other person and how can I plan for those.
Yeah.
And then the openness just reminded me of having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset going into the encounter or the meeting. So I really appreciate those shares.
Mm-hmm. We have great things here. I
Yeah.
wonder what our audience is thinking of, what their tools are.
Yeah, and we encourage you to drop your thoughts or what this conversation stirred up in you. We'd love to hear and see those comments.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, it's been delightful as usual.
As
I love
usual,
these
and
conversations.
yeah, this has been another episode, and we've enjoyed our time with you and together of questions and conversations on leadership and life. And I'm Steve.
And I'm Polly, and you
And
have a
until
great
next
day.
time, make it a great day.
There you go. See ya. That's a wrap for today's episode of Questions and Conversations on Leadership and Life. We hope this conversation sparked new insights for you. How do you ensure you show up as a resource rather than a demand? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a comment or message us. This episode was hosted by Stevie Campana and Polly Bellin Wilson. Produced by Polly Bellin Wilson. Music by freetouse.com/music. Copyright Free Music for Videos. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share it with someone who could benefit.